You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey vet rehabbers, well, it's my last podcast of 2022. So I thought it was a great way to end the year would be to get some insight and inspiration to getting organized in your life and your practice. Mish, who most of the Online Pet Health members will know as the person who hosts all our webinars, is our systems person at Online Pet Health. Now, although she's not a vet or a vet rehabber herself, she has great insight into our day-to-day as she used to be a practice manager at a veterinary practice. Now, that's actually where we met. So in 2017, when I started Online Pet Health, after about 6 months, I realized we were growing really quickly and I needed help. And I knew that I needed someone really, really organized. And so the first person I thought about was Mish. I called her and she joined the team. So over the years, she has created systems and processes for everything we do. And it's why everything runs so smoothly. So today, she's going to share with us why systems are so important and how to implement them slowly into your practice. If you're taking a break over this time, Online Pet Health members, log into the portal, go and catch up on some of your learning from our extensive library. If you're not a member, you can always sign up for our free limited access membership. We have some new webinars in there. Go to onlinepethealth.com/free to sign up. Now, before my chat with Mish, a quick word from our sponsors. Curacao Vets founder and CEO Dr. Nada Robinson has been teaching science-based integrative medicine for nearly 25 years. She first developed her courses at Colorado State University, where she started the Medical Acupuncture for Veterinarian Certification program, and this was in 1998. In so doing, Dr. Robinson developed a science-based platform for veterinary acupuncture, the first of its kind. Today, Curacao Vet offers a comprehensive curriculum in integrative medicine with a rational, evidence-supported foundation. Courses include medical acupuncture, photomedicine, botanical medicine, medical massage, and integrative rehabilitation. You can discover Curacao Vet at curacao.org. So here's wishing all of you a prosperous and successful 2023. I'm excited to be on this journey with you, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast. Now, I hope this one really helps you to get focused and organized in the upcoming year. So over to my chat with Michelle. Hey, Mishy.
Hi, Maggie.
Thank you so much for joining me. So today is the first. It's two firsts, actually. The first time I'm recording in my office with somebody, because I'm normally on Zoom, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky to have Mish in South Africa here. And it's the first time Mish is being on the podcast.
I know.
So Online Pet Health members, you guys will obviously know Mish. She is the one who is behind all the webinars. She does all the hosting of the webinars, and she's that person who is always behind the email helping you guys out whenever you need any help. So she's always there for you. So Mish, I want to say a big thank you from the vet rehabbers for everything that you do for them. So yeah, the reason that I've got Mish on the podcast today is because Mish is basically the person who runs Online Pet Health. She is our systems processes person. If anytime we have anything that needs to be organized, we're like, I just speak to Mish, like Mish will sort this out. And so I really thought that there was a lot of help that she could give and advice and tips that she could give us as vet rehabbers and how we can implement these systems and processes into our practices. So now what a lot of you guys might not know about me is I'm actually a very disorganized person.
Yikes.
So you might not think it. So it looks like I'm organized, but that's really just Mish. Okay, that's Mish organizing everything. And one of the things that, Mish and I don't actually often get to see each other a lot. So we're not actually in person, but we see each other a lot on Zoom. And then I have to share my screen. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, she's going to see all my open tabs.
Yeah, Megs does get into trouble quite a bit for the hundreds of open tabs.
So, and that's what my life is like. I've got all these things open all the time, and I need somebody to be able to help me to complete them. So I'm like really good. I have a great idea. And then I'm like, let's go with this. And that's who I need Mish for. Because then Mish is like, okay, I'm going to implement it. And she puts all the steps into plan, works out who's going to do what. And then we get the outcome that we basically want. So Mish, really excited to chat about this. And I know
Me
this
too.
is a topic that you're really, really passionate about.
Yeah.
Like Mish, she gets really excited, guys, really excited about systems and processes. So
The more organized and the neater things run, I love. I
Yeah.
get, and when there's something that's not, it's not, I call it a bird's nest. When it's not as neat as I'd like it to be or seamless I'd like it to be, I go back and I revisit it and I try and make it perfect every time. And it gives me my oomph to keep going.
yeah, I mean, we don't need to be like, so even if you're not the kind of person that wants to be like completely color coded everything, that's not what we're going to talk about today, although Mish is, and she's very pink. So everything is pink. So she's basically we're going to discuss now, like basically how you create these systems. And I really think because Mish has insight into vet rehabbers, she lives and breathes vet rehabbers' lives every single day. She really knows where you guys are at, what you're struggling with. And I feel that no matter where you are and what you're wanting to do, whether it to be completely like flat out systems and process throughout your practice, or even just implementing a few that might just be able to help you from your day to day and improve your practice in the way that it runs.
Yeah, and I hope from chatting to everyone today that they'll see that they actually might want to do it. Even after trying one, they'll go, wow, this helps me so much. And it becomes addictive, I think. I'm hoping.
I think more for Mish. So Mish, let's start off by saying why they're so important. Why is it so important to have systems and processes in your business or vet rehab practice?
So I think for vet rehabbers, their lives are crazy. You never know what's going to happen in a day. You never know unless you're booked far in advance, you don't know what cases you're going to get. And having a system in place for the simplest of things can take pressure off. Main thing for me is that it takes away stress and open loops. And open loops are things that you have hovering in your head and you think, I must do this, and it creates anxiety or stress or just unease in your everyday life. So if you have a very simple system that you know what you're going to do, you can put that into your system and pause it and come back to that, whatever your system may be. So it could be a list, it could be a whiteboard with markers on, it could be a file, it could be on the computer, whatever your system is. The minute you take it out of your brain and put it into a holding space, let's call it, it takes that pressure and anxiety away from you and allows you to do your job even better than you were doing before. So that is what I try and achieve my team every single day.
Yeah, and so I mean, like as you're chatting now, I'm thinking about in practice, like what it was like. So I mean, like the first thing that came to mind was like a checklist when somebody books. So it's pretty much creating checklists for you and your team in your practice. So let's say you have a few things that you do when somebody phones and they want to book an appointment. If you don't have a checklist, you just have to remember it off the top of your head. So the person phones, they say, oh, they want appointments. And you say, okay, I need all this information. And then they say, well, I don't have this information. We'd have to get that from the vet. And so then in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, I have to phone the vet to do that. And as you're thinking that, you haven't written it down, somebody walks in the door and you suddenly have to serve them. And then the next minute you've forgotten. But now in the back of your mind, your subconscious is saying, there's something I've forgotten, you know, that dreadful feeling. And then that happens throughout the day. And they're just these multiple, I've forgotten something. And then what happens is they walk in the door that morning you suddenly realize, oh, I don't have the history from the vet. And now you've got consults and now you're panicking and you're like trying to get somebody to phone. And these are the things where systems, I feel like in a practice has really helped would have really helped me. I think like over time I did start to implement them, but in the very beginning I didn't. And so like a checklist, for example, Mish, would be like, you know, you'd get their name, their phone number, the dog, have you got the vet report? So when you're ticking off these things on this little checklist for that person, then when you're getting all the files, you're having a look for tomorrow, this is now the day before, oh, I haven't done that. You know, you realize that there's something, and ideally not is going to be doing it a few days before, because you need to give yourself time basically to go through that checklist.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
like you're
Absolutely. It can be something as simple as getting a client to fill in their client sheet, and in there say, do you have the history, and have a little check block, and you go through those, and then you've got a check block for yourself to say received from vet, so that you can put them together. You could automate that and go into something like Google Forms, which is really easy and it's free, and create a little link where the client does it online. You can just WhatsApp it to them on their phone. So it's really little things that help you. And when I'm talking about little things and little systems, it also depends very much on the individual and the person. So when you implement these systems, your day, your week, your month will glide seamlessly. It's not going to have such those moments of panic and those moments of, I have to do this, so I don't have space to do this. It just allows everything to go along smoothly. And I believe that it creates a happier atmosphere for yourself and your team to get through each month at a time. I think at Online Pet Health, we sometimes look and we're like, wow, that was a whole month and we'd done it and there wasn't a glitch in sight. Now I'm touching wood because you say that and then something goes wrong, right?
I think also, when you have these systems in place, it gives you the space to be able to handle the emergency when it happens.
Absolutely. And those moments with unexpected challenges, it gives you the capacity, because you don't have those open loops, you've got a gap. And it's a bit of, I like to think of it as an energy cell, and you've got that energy cell to deal with what's going on in that moment.
Yeah, because without them, you're just continually putting out fires.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's chat about how you actually create those systems. Can you run through your thought process on how you do it? Because it's all very well saying this is how you, we have to have all of these, but when you sit down and you look I've got all these things happening, where do you start?
Yeah. So, and most people have no idea where to begin. And my first thought is to say, take the smallest and simplest thing which you take for granted every day, and start there and think to yourself, this is where I start in the day. This is the outcome I want to achieve. What steps do I take to get to there? And make a list of those steps. It doesn't need to be a list. It can be a mind map. It can be blocks. It can be a picture. Whatever talks to you. I like color, as Meg says, and I make mind maps, and from that I make lists, and from that I put it into an application. So I have a process to create my processes. But really, something simple, just like Meg was saying, a new client gets a new client form, but add those things in that you think are difficulties later, and think about it. And when something comes up, just go and amend the form and get a new set printed, or add it to your Google Sheet and get that updated. I think it's much easier when you realize the first system I create, it's not that hard. And then you think, well, I would like to tackle something bigger. There's always a beginning and an end. And that's what you've got to focus on. And I was chatting to Meg earlier, and I was saying, I think vet rehabbers don't actually realize that they use systems every day. When you're presented with a diagnosis in a patient, you go, right, this is what I want to happen in the end. That's the result. And this is the plan I have to have, whether I give these exercises to the owner, this is the plan I'm going to do, whether it be hydro, whether it be manual, and you create an entire system per patient. Yeah. So it's not as hard if you relate it to that every day. If you're really not an office person, just think about your lateral thinking. That is how you think. Every vet rehabber has to do that. So you could do that implementing systems. Another thing I wanted to chat about was just, if it's with a team and you say you're in a brick and mortar practice and you have a whole lot of systems and you're very overwhelmed, it also helps to know your people and know what kind of systems and mindsets they have. So for instance, I work a lot with outcomes and process thinkers. So a process thinker is that middle bit. This, if I do this, it will do that, and that. But there's multiple ways to do this, and that tends to make bird nests. So I like to talk to those people and extrapolate what they want out of that. So I go, this is our start, this is the outcome you want, and try and find the simplest, most fuss-free way to do it. So write down all your points and you say, I actually don't need to do that part because it doubles up over here. That is how I kind of break down and do things. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps. And that's me. So I'm that person. There are more than one way to do it. And that's the thing, you see. And sometimes what we'll do is, if we don't have a system, we will do multiple ways. So we will do the same thing, but we'll do it in a different way every single time.
Each time.
And then when you're not consistent, right, you don't do it consistently. And I mean, one thing that's coming up, like as I'm chatting now, is thinking about like customer and your client experiences. You always want to be consistent with your client's experiences. And this is a prime example where a system is great. Like when a client phones, these are the things that happen. When you see them, this is what needs to be discussed at the end of the appointment. Then you schedule the next appointment. You WhatsApp them the next day to ask them how their dog is doing. There's basically a system that you'll go through for the whole client. If you're just winging it and doing it, you might forget that one client, you didn't tell them something. And then when later you're chatting to them, they're just looking at you clueless because you forgot to tell them. And that's where like being consistent and doing whatever you're going to do it the same way every single time. And that's the only way you can make yourself better. When you keep doing it the same way, then you suddenly realize, oh, okay, I can just tweak this a little bit. And then that's so much better.
You find little areas in the system which aren't quite sitting well with you. And then that's no problem. You just need to change it because it's one little wheel in that system. And when you change that wheel, it spins better and it keeps going. I think another thing is the consistency. Even those days where you just don't feel like, oh, I'm just going to leave this till tomorrow. Don't do it. Take that extra 2 minutes because that 2 minutes will save you 2 hours down the line. And, you know, if there's a client that comes in that's particularly difficult and you have a little bit of extra time just to deal with that client because you've gone through a system, it helps take that pressure off. Again, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, completely. I've just actually remembered the very first system that I actually put into my practice, and it was closing up. When we closed the practice, I wrote a little system because there's always different people. And then what would happen is I'd be like, who cashed up? Who did this? Who did that? And so then we had it like a plan, basically, like when you close the practice, you got 10 things you need to do. You need to switch this light off, switch this light on. And we went through the whole thing. And then every day we had a person who was dedicated to closing up. And then I knew exactly. And for some reason, when you have that, it always happened. You know, when you have sort of somebody doing one thing, somebody doing another thing, then everyone's like, oh no, but that person's doing it. And I think it really helps when you're managing a team, when you've got systems, when you then people know exactly what they need to do. Because if you don't have the system, you don't have it written down anywhere, then it's just sort of like you tell somebody, all right, when we close up, this is what you're going to do. Then one day they do it, and then somebody thinks, oh, they didn't do it, I'll just do it for them. And that's when things start to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So
it kind of a system will give accountability to each person. And they will also rise to the occasion because you are giving them that little bit of responsibility and saying, this is your part. And it helps people feel more like a team. It's not just all falling on your shoulders. It helps spread the load.
Another time where I think it's also very useful is when somebody is sick. So if there is a system and somebody, because you know what often happens is certain people do certain jobs within the practice. And then if somebody is sick, somebody else has to take over that job. And they might have been shown how to do it. But if there is actually a documented system and like just what I'm thinking about now in my practice would have been the underwater treadmill. When you come in, what is the procedure for the underwater treadmill? You know, what heater do you switch on? You know, what is the exact thing that you need to do first thing in the morning? And if that person was sick, that would only get done later on because suddenly, you know, you're trying to work out, trying to phone, well, what do I need to do now? And trying to remember. So it just makes things so much easier on everybody. I think it really, the stress factor for me, and especially even in online pet health, when the systems that we have that Mish makes, it's the stress factor that is so decreased because you have this content sort of knowing it's okay, like we've got this, you know. You never have to worry, have we forgotten something, because we've got a system. And sometimes we do, sometimes our systems forget something, but then we go back, right? And we update them
and we make them better.
So let's chat about that, Mish. So now they've created systems, and they might be creating systems. I'm going to give you guys a whole lot of examples now. Let's say when you walk in with your underwater treadmill first thing in the morning, if the underwater treadmill stops working, what do? You should have a system for that. If somebody phones in to get an appointment, what is the system? If you have somebody who hasn't paid, what is the system? Okay, who follows up on that? How long do you give them? Do you send an SMS? It'll be a system for that. So these are like examples of systems that you're going to have. Now, they're always changing, and this is the problem with them for me. It's like, I feel like once I create my system, I just want to do my system, but you've got to keep updating them because things change. And it might be, in our situation in Onlinepethealth, because we're online, it's often softwares. It's like a new software, or the things change all the time in the way that we do things. But for you guys, it might be you found a better way, you need to reevaluate your system. So what's pointless is just creating the systems and then leaving them for years. You got to sit down on a regular basis, right, and go through those systems. So Mish, what is your advice on how to keep those systems updated?
So I have a system for my systems to keep them up to date. And it sounds stressful and it sounds like it's a lot, but it's not, because you're continually keeping things flowing. I set up my systems from scratch. I took each staff member one at a time. I went through what kind of person are they? I find how to work with them. I set up a system, a beginning and end. I fill in the gaps. We go through it once or twice. We find a way. Okay, this works. We take this bit out. We add this bit in. And then as the year progresses, I have set almost chapters. So I'll take categories and I'll do social media or webinar planning or business basics. And I will check each system each month and see what are we not doing? What has become redundant? What is new in the feature? Connect with that staff member again, come up with an updated system and put that into my template. So it's a continual ongoing thing. It never goes to sleep. And I think a lot of people think that is a scary thought, that it's like a circle that never ends. That is the joy in it, because it's always going to improve. So if you take your focus from being, I want to be finished and done. In the veterinary world, we've got the beginning of the patient's now healed and they're gone. A system is not like this. It's okay to have a running loop of things when they're not in your head, when they're actually in a system, because you can go look, say, oh, I actually don't enjoy doing that part. I got to find a way better that I can do that and actually enjoy it. My prime example is filing, because filing, nobody loves filing. I don't know, I think there's very few people who like filing. But if you come up with a system that you can work with, say you're a color person, or you like templates, or you like grid formats or something like that, you can get different ways of filing. So the easiest thing I can think of is those filing salamanders. I don't know if anyone's ever seen one, but it goes A through to Z and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And at the beginning of each month, as you get statements and invoices, you put it under the letter, put them all together and file them away. So you know you're doing your filing every day, but it's making it easier for you. Some people prefer to file per day in the file, then it's all on that date. But I just think continually working on those things, making them a habit and doing them in the way that you work. So I think firstly, spending time with yourself and saying, how do I feel about when I look at things that are in a list, or how do I feel about it when it's actually in a flow diagram? What works for me? And that is where to begin and keep that going every year.
Yeah, that's it. And once you've got, like Mish said, just start off with the easy things. Now, as all these systems, you start to bring these all together, you get your standard operating procedures for your practice, right? And that's like a booklet. It doesn't have to be a physical booklet. You can print it out. I think most practices, if they've got one, they do print it out, because somebody can just go up quickly and say, what do I do if the treadmill breaks, quickly, and have a look and see what the step-by-step procedure is. But that really is the goal in the end, so that everything that happens in your practice, and when you're able to do that, then you are really able to go on holiday for 2 weeks, because everything happens without you, And I think as a practice owner, that's one of the mistakes that we often make, is that we start off with just us, and then we do everything, right? And that's actually when you first should start doing systems, but you don't feel the need to do systems because you've got it.
Yeah, it's all in your head.
Yeah, and then you get one other person. And so I started Onlinepethealth, and Mish was my other person. So Mish joined me in 2017.
Yeah,
when I started. And, even then for us, it was like we just used to chat to each other, right? And so it was the same with my practice. It was me, and then I got another therapist, and the two of us would chat all the time. And then it's easy because it's the two of you. Then you get number 3 in. Then things start to get complicated because now you're often not talking together and then things get missed. And that's when you start to realize, oh, we need a better system in place. We need systems in place. And then it takes you such a long time to get all of those. So if you guys are listening to this and you are a one-man band, now is the time, guys. It's the easiest time to start, because if you start creating these systems, then when people start joining you, you just say, this is how we do things here. And you've already got them. And then your practice is actually set up exactly the way that you want it to be set up.
It's like having another you in writing. So you'll know how to cash up. You'll know how to sort out the treadmill. You'll know how your patient charts look. But should you have just a little booklet where you keep it in your pocket, and you go, today I did this, and these were the 5 steps I did to get to this. Later, when you get a receptionist, you can ask her to type it out. That brings me to my last point, is delegate. So if you're in a practice and you've got 5 people that you work with, delegate to them and say, you're really good at this. This is what you do every day. Can you map that out for me? Or can you give me a bullet point list? Get that from everyone, and you'll be able to put through your systems booklet for the practice.
Yeah, and I think the other thing for me where the systems really come into place in the standard operating procedures is when you hire people. So I don't know how many of you guys have had this happen to you. You hire a receptionist or you hire somebody, and then, you show them what to do, and now they start working. It's usually like the first 2 or so weeks. They're working basically, and they are not doing things exactly how you showed them how to do it. But to be fair, all you did was show them for like half an hour, 1 hour, and you expected them to, just from the time when you're just going, speaking, and this is completely me. Like, I will explain something to somebody and I'll think, well, I explained it to you, like, why don't you remember? And you can't expect, realistically, you can't expect somebody to know that. And then they start doing, then they're not doing it exactly right. And then you think, well, I'm just going to do it myself. Like, I don't even know why I hired this person. And then you start just doing it yourself, which is completely the wrong reason.
It defeats the point.
Because now you've employed somebody to help you, to take more of the work that you were doing away from you so that you've got time. And the reason is because you just feel like it's easier to do it myself. When you have systems in place and you have the standard operating procedures manual, what you do is you can show them and explain it, and you say it's all here in the book. So when they have that moment where they're like, I remember Megan showing me this, but I can't remember exactly what to do, they go into the booklet and they go, okay, and then they follow exactly the procedure, and they don't come and ask you. And then you go, this person is amazing because they're doing all the things exactly how I like them to do it.
It will also give them a lot of confidence, being able to do it on their own and do it the way you want it. And when there is a problem, they'll feel confident enough to say, look, I've got a problem here. And then you can sort it out, because it's not a panic. It brings us back to working in a space that's calm and not having to put out fires the whole time.
Yeah, so now one of the things, I know that you guys are all thinking, this sounds wonderful, absolutely wonderful. This is exactly how I would like my practice to be. And you're thinking, but like, I'm completely overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. Like, what I would recommend is like 1 day a week, and be it a Friday or Monday or whatever. Mondays are always crazy in vet rehab practices and vet practices. Or maybe it's a Thursday. You say, like, I'm going to take half an hour and I'm going to do one system every single Thursday. And you might think, well, it's going to take me a year in order to be able to do 52. That's fine. If it takes you a year, it takes you a year, but just start and create a system, like you're going to say, and make it a habit, make it a thing that you do every single week. I'm going to start creating. And you can also get your team to create the systems that they do. So it's not only you that needs to do it. You can overlook them. So you can say, let's say the hydrotherapist, they must do the underwater treadmill checklist. They must do what is going to happen. And you can sit down with them once they've created them and overlook them and just make sure that you're happy with that. You can maybe add in a few things that they may haven't thought about, and get them to type that up and put that into a Google Doc or whatever you want. Everyone must play their part, and they need to do it every single week. And before you know it, you will have something, at least something, and things will start to just gel and work so much easier and give you that headspace to be able to do what you guys love to do, and that's to treat the animals.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely, having those booklets and having a operating manual, it will just give you so much space to deal with your emergencies. Your practice will run well, even if you're a one-man band. If you have that written in and you think suddenly I'm sick and someone needs to step in for me, you can give that to them and you'll know that your patients are taken care of. I was just thinking now, how do we get it across to vet rehabbers that don't have a brick and mortar practice and you're a traveling therapist? What you can do is have a checklist for what you pack your car with. So you've got a set kit. Have I got this in case this happens? Have I got that in that case that happens? And it will just take that out of your mind, that rush in the morning. Oh, I've got to pack this. Oh, I've forgotten that. That is a system on its own. So if you're doing that already without having it written down, you've got the system. Just write it down. Yes.
Write it down so you don't have to keep remembering it, because like we are just like, there's just volume overload all the time with social media and WhatsApps and just everything happening. Our phones. No, I was thinking the other day how lovely it was. Like, I was thinking about my mom, not having to have a cell phone when she was younger, when we were kids. Because, your cell phone is just all the time, just continually messages coming at you. And it's just creating open loops. Every time you read a message and you have to respond and you haven't responded. And so what I would suggest is that you create a system where you answer your emails if you're a mobile practitioner, and same as if you're brick and mortar, don't read emails if you can't answer them. That's also just creating open loops.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think my emails are my most urgent thing on my list every day. So I start with that. I give myself an hour, I resolve all those issues, and I close my emails until 4:00 in the afternoon. So all the emergencies are done. And then it gives me time to focus on the other stuff. If you need to do that more than once in a day, by all means do that, but set yourself time to do that so that you're not panicking that you're going to forget something. I think relying more on technology or simple pen and paper. If you're a person that loses lists and pops them all in different places, use one thing and one thing only. Use the notes in your phone if you have to, but keep consistent with that and only answer those messages and texts later. So say you've got a lunchtime, half an hour before lunchtime, I'm sitting down, I'm answering all my messages. At the end of the day, I'm doing that again. I'm answering all my messages. And then from that, you can even create another system. These are things that I now need to do from these messages. And that is the first thing you do in the morning. Simple, doesn't come naturally to everyone. But again, I'm highlighting the issue. You do have a system with an animal, so you can do it. And you've just proven to yourself that you do it because you do that every day with your patients. So I've got faith in all of you.
The one last thing, Mish, I wanted to say is that when you also have these systems, it also highlights places in which you can automate stuff.
Yes.
So when you start to realize, but why are we doing this all manually? There's now a software that we can do it. Say, for example, maybe you used to text message people. There's softwares now that can automate things. So yeah, when you've got these systems, it highlights that. Otherwise, you just keep doing the manual things without actually even realizing it.
Yeah, you can find any app on Android or Apple these days. And even something as simple as I was creating a list the other day, and I thought, oh, this is going to take so long to sort out. Went onto my phone and they're like, let's sort your list for you. And you just copy and paste it all in and it gives it categories and everything. So it really is much more simple than you think. And consistency is key.
Exactly. Mish, it's been awesome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Vet rehabbers, I hope that this really, really helped you. So we thought this would be a good one now to do because the new year is coming. So think about this now over the next few weeks and think about next year, like really, really starting, setting out your systems and getting your practice completely organized. Mish, it's been lovely to have you in person. I think we can do another one.
Oh, maybe we can.
Yeah, we're gonna think about another topic. While Mish is here in South Africa. Have an awesome day, guys.
Have a good day, guys.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Curacor. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free. So please go and check them out. You can go to www.curacor.org. Do you want to get access to our free membership? Well, we update the webinars in this area every few months. You can sign up at www.onlinepethealth.com/free. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to our website, onlinepethealth.com.